Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Jordan's Family Law, part now of LexisNexis. We reviewed this title in the past as it's an annual publication. The title is the International Survey of Family Law, the 2016 edition, and it's been edited again. General editor is Professor Bill Atkin. And Bill has done a first-class job again with this review. And as I say, the survey itself is something that's well worth reading to get a much greater idea of the general global picture of where we are with family law matters. Now, Elizabeth and I gave the review title for our book review the following: Developments in Family Law from Around the World, the Annual Review. And I think it's really important to have books of this nature because we are part of a global community now, and it's very important to know what is happening. Let's look at the book first of all. Here it is. There we go. That's the actual book there. It's a hardback. There's the spine, which you can see there, and then there's a little bit of information on the back, not a great deal. You'll notice that it's available as an e-book, so there's a little sign there that tells you about that there. And at the back of the book, if we just open it up, you will see it runs to just under 600 pages, 550 pages. There isn't as such any form of index, just ends child marriage in Zimbabwe. See, dealing with very serious matters here. You do have little footnotes, of course, at the bottoms of the pages. You have subheadings and paragraph numbering to a certain extent, but it's done in a slightly different way. It's not done on the main paragraph numbering, it's done in terms of parts, so you can find things reasonably well. But there's a huge amount of detailed information. We go to the front. There is the front cover there, and that shows you the people who are involved. The associate editor for Africa is Farenda Banda, so obviously we make reference to all the people who are involved. And then you've got the basic information in the contents section, looking at it's by country, so it runs all the way through, the contents section being quite substantial. I'm not going to go through each page, but it starts off alphabetically and ends up with Zimbabwe right at the end. And then you've got the Society of Family Law, International Society of Family Law members listed. Gives you an idea of where we are. A lot of information here, because I think this book is very important to get some idea, because we are very global today, some idea of what the rules are. Now, there's a general overview of the International Society of Family Law, which I think is quite helpful, which gives some information there, history of the society, and then various other information. Then we get into the book itself. There's a preface, excuse me, which is there. And then there's an application form. Well, I'm not missing a trick there. And then we get into the various countries. And it starts with Albania, reforming the adoption legislation in Albania and the best interests of the child. So you see, they're dealing with, actually, what you've got here is they're dealing with some of the big issues in some of the main countries across the globe. And that's really the benefit of this, because, as I've said before, even with my practice, I do find today that the clients I have are not from this country. They're from England and Wales. They are from all over the place. And you've got overseas jurisdictions to think of. You've got child abduction issues to think of. All sorts of matters. Family law being a wide area, of course, of as a jurisdiction. So what do we say about the book? Well, comparative lawyers, as well as international lawyers, specialising in family law across international boundaries, will find this book an enlightening, if not compelling, read. Here in one volume is a judicious selection of the latest developments in family law across a wide range of jurisdictions worldwide, from Albania, Belgium and Canada to the United States of America and Zimbabwe. The resulting diverse array of insights and revelations should prove an eye-opener to practitioners everywhere, assuming quite reasonably that changes and developments in one or several countries may influence and impact upon legal norms and practices in others. And I think that's absolutely correct, although of course one of the problems you have when you're advising a client is to try and explain what our jurisdiction is and not what the other jurisdictions are, because there's always a bit of a misunderstanding sometimes about jurisdiction. Here then, in the 2016 edition of this annual review, which has been published by the Jordan's Family Law imprint on behalf of the International Society of Family Law, is a publication which many of you will be aware of. We've certainly reviewed it in the last few years. Of course, Jordan's is now part of LexisNexis. One of the great benefits of this volume, we think, is that, as General Editor Professor Bill Atkin also says, is the opportunity to see the panorama of legal challenges across the globe. The book's 26 chapters cover a dizzying array of topics, from adoption, abortion and children's rights to marriage equality, polygamy, divorce, spousal maintenance and domestic violence. So basically all the issues, when you take away the tag of the country, the issues are still there, and it's really a question of how the individual countries deal with it. And wouldn't it not be a lovely thing if we eventually had some sort of cohesive approach, general approach across the board? I think that's a bit of pie in the sky thinking to a certain extent, but it is nice to think that because the issues are basically the same in many different countries, I certainly found that in my international travels, the same issues, they're just different words and different ways of dealing with them, but it's still a problem, and we therefore have to try to see how we deal with it. It's important to note, for example, the chapters on Muslim divorce in Norway, child marriage in Zimbabwe, the plethora of marital property issues that have emerged in the USA and elsewhere. And of course the case of Zimbabwe certainly indicates a positive development which renders marriage for anyone under 18 years of age illegal, following the ruling by Zimbabwe's Constitutional Court, which applies equally to girls and boys and to all forms of marriage or union. Now again, very important points, because there has to be, I suggest, some form of standardisation across the globe. And that's really what we've always been working for. We'd love to have a moratorium on capital punishment. We'd like to have a moratorium on this, that and the other. But you've got to work towards it. It's the job the UN should be doing, but they can't because they're arguing about where they're sitting most of the time. However, and that's not a flippant remark either, however, let's get back to the book. As for Norway, the situation there regarding divorce reveals that Muslim women of Pakistani origin residing in Norway do not have the same or similar rights, basically, as Norwegian women. Interesting point. This study indicates, says its author, that the present legal situation is not adequately sensitive to the fact that the Pakistani tariq divorce may be informed by procedural and material rules that in varying degrees discriminate against women, who in this case are deemed not to have the required connection or attachment to Norway. Well, that's an interesting point of view, I must say. I don't know that I agree with any of that personally, because I thought we were all equal. Of course that isn't the case, and there are all sorts of cultural defences put up. The confusion inherent in, of course, in this situation and the possible solutions available will be of interest in countries which feature large immigrant communities living mainly in urban areas. And that is going to be a problem as the whole of this century unfolds. Certainly I've seen that in North America, and I've certainly seen it in Europe, and I see no reason why it's not going to change much. It's going to get worse, and therefore we need to bring in some standards. We also need to have some sort of controls and direction and command as to where we're going. That means we've got to get agreements. And it also means something else. It means equality. And that's one of the problems. But that's for another day. Let me conclude by saying, thanking, of course, Bill and his team and everybody involved for the survey. But let me say this. These are, the examples just given, 2 examples of the range of noteworthy developments in family law that emerge from this book, which with its extensive footnoting presents a formidable body of research and comment from 20 countries, all gathered together in one handy volume, which I think family law practitioners everywhere will find indispensable. And I really do thank the team very much for continuing to produce this excellent publication for us. The publication date is cited at 2016, and I have recorded this at the beginning of 2017. There's the book again. There's the spine, nice hardback, and then there's the back cover. Remember, as I said, it's an ebook as well now. Just opening it in the middle, here we go. A chronicle of French family law, entry into force of the succession regulation. Okay, so a lot of stuff. Can I just say one last thing? Well, there's a lot of footnoting there. Let's say one thing. You see the words that are mentioned in the specific countries where the jurisdictions are, and you have to think for a few minutes, but you realise quite quickly that in fact they have slightly different words, but it's still the same issues that are being dealt with. And that, I think, is probably the ray of hope for the future. That is, we might possibly eventually be able to get some standardisation in where possible. But of course it means people giving way. For instance, the classic here, this one is on New Zealand, adoption reform. Again, a whole range of big issues, and something again that I'm hoping in the longer term, with the expansion of digitisation, the internet and everything else, people knowing their rights, people being more well educated, more highly educated, and therefore more familiar with the information, that we might be in a position to start moving forward with our welfare laws and our family law concepts, rather than 2 paces back every so often. Thank you to Bill Atkin and all the people involved, and Jordan's in particular. Good luck for all your publications in 2017, now that you're part of Lexis. And once again, thank you for this excellent survey. Much appreciated. Happy New Year. Bye-bye.